Bonjour French 2 students. Here is your teaching video for lesson 15C on pages 221 and 222 in your textbook. S'il vous plaît, ouvrez vos livres à la page 221. C'est les prénoms accentués. In the answers to the questions below, the nouns in heavy print are replaced by pronouns. These pronouns are called stress pronouns. Note their forms. François dîne avec Florence. Oui, il dîne avec elle. Tu parles de Jean-Paul? No, je ne parle pas de Louis. So this is pretty common. We do this in English as well, right? We wouldn't typically say, is Francois having dinner with Florence? Yes, he is having dinner with Florence, right? We would change the Florence to become her, just like they did here. Okay. Same thing with the second question, right? Are you talking about Jean-Paul? No, I'm not talking about Jean-Paul. We typically wouldn't use Jean-Paul's name again. We would change it to him. So they also do that in French. So you see here the subject pronoun and the stress pronoun. S'il vous plaît, répétez je, moi, tu, toi, il, lui, elle, nous, vous, il, eux, elle. So, kind of to help you remember this, because you should know it, but just in case, right? When the subject pronoun is je, that means I. The stress pronoun that corresponds to that is moi. It doesn't mean I anymore. It means me. Tu means you. Remember, this is a singular you, so you're only talking to one person. The stress pronoun that matches is toi, and that means you as well, one person. Remember, we call this the familiar you. Okay, so you use it with one person, and it's someone you know well or who's younger than you, a member of your family. Il means he. The stress pronoun that corresponds to il is Louis, and Louis means him. Elle means she. The stress pronoun that corresponds to elle is also elle, but now it means her. The subject pronoun nous means we. The stress pronoun is also nous, but now nous means us. Vous means you. Remember, this can be kind of two different ways. This can be plural or singular. Remember, plural means we're talking to a group of people. For example, when I'm referring to all of you in class, I use vous. Singular, remember, this is also sometimes called the formal. The formal you, because we use it with adults, people we don't know, people we want to be polite with, in which case it's singular. Either way, the stress pronoun that corresponds is vous, and it also still means you. Il pluriel means they. Remember, this is either an all-male group or a mixed group. The stress pronoun that corresponds to il pluriel is eux, and that means them. Elle also means they, but now it's an all-female group. The stress pronoun that corresponds to elle pluriel is still also elle pluriel, and it means them. Okay, so these are the subject pronouns and the stress pronouns. S'il vous plaît, répétez je, moi, tu, toi, il, lui, elle, nous, vous, il, eux, elle. Now, one thing that is different between French and English is the fact that the French use these stress pronouns much more than we do. So the French use these more than us. So stress pronouns are used to reinforce a subject pronoun. Moi, je parle français. Vous parlez anglais. This, in English, we don't do this, right? In English, we don't very often say me, I speak French. You speak English. But the French do this all the time, okay? The second bullet after c'est and ce n'est pas. C'est Paul là-bas? No, ce n'est pas lui. Remember, c'est means it's. Like it is. Okay, so ce n'est pas would mean it's not. So is it Paul over there? No, it's not him. Another use of the stress pronouns in short sentences where there is no verb. Qui parle français ici? Moi. This is the same as in English, right? Who speaks French here? Me. Another use of the stress pronouns before and after a and ou. Lui et moi, nous sommes copains. Him and me, we are friends. Again, this is different than in English, right? So this one's kind of different from English. This one also is kind of different from English. Because in English we say he and I. We use our subject pronouns, but in French they use the stress pronouns. Another use for the stress pronouns is after prepositions such as de, avec, pour, and chez. So remember, de means of, about, or from. It's that little word that has a lot of different meanings. Avec is with, pour is for, and chez is at the home of, or house of. Okay, so you tend to use the stress pronouns with these. You also do this in English. These are prepositions. So like, I give the book to him. I don't say I give the book to I or to he, right? So we use those stress pronouns also in English here. So we have voici Marc et Paul. Je parle souvent d'eux. Voici Isabelle. Je vais au cinéma avec elle. Voici Monsieur Mercier, nous travaillons pour lui. And then it says, note the meaning of chez and a stress pronoun. Je vais chez moi means I am going to the house of me, which is my house. Paul étudie chez lui. Paul is studying at the house of him, which is his house. Okay. Tu viens chez nous. You are coming to the house of us, which is our house. And je suis chez Alice, je dîne chez elle. I'm having dinner at the house of her, which is her house. Okay, so chez with a stress pronoun is a pretty common construction or use in French. So many of these uses are the same in both French and English. The two that I kind of have starred here are ones that we don't do very often in English, but they do them in French, okay? So again, that subject pronoun reinforcing, and then again, in English we would say he and I, but in French you actually say him and me. So if we take a look at exercise 6, samedi soir, on Saturday night, some people stay home and others do not. Read what the following people are doing and say whether or not they are at home. So we have Alice étudie. Well, if Alice is studying, she is at her house. So we have elle chez elle. We have Paul va au cinéma. Paul is going to the movie theater. If he's going to the movie theater, he is not at his house. So il n'est pas chez lui. So we're going to use the verb être for all of these, which means to be. Hopefully you remember your forms of être, right? It's je suis, tu es, il or elle est, nous sommes, vous êtes, and il and elle pluriel sont. Okay, we're always going to use chez. We're always going to use chez. And then we're always going to use the stress pronoun that corresponds to the subject pronoun. Okay, so that's going back to this idea that if the subject they give me is elle, then I'm going to use the stress pronoun elle. If the subject they give me is il, I'm going to use the stress pronoun lui. Okay, so we're going to use the corresponding one. So again, this is going to be a speaking one, not a writing one. Okay, so for number 1, we have François regarde la télé. Il est chez lui. Okay, because if Francois is watching TV, he is at his house. He might not be, so it also would be fine if you had il n'est pas chez lui. De Mélanie va au cinéma. Elle n'est pas chez elle. Toi, Marc et Pierre dînent en ville. Ils ne sont pas chez eux. 4. Lia et Pauline écoutent des CD. Elles sont chez elles. It's also possible that they could be listening to CDs not at their house, so it also would be fine to say elles ne sont pas chez elles. 5. Les voisins font une promenade. Ils ne sont pas chez eux. 6. Je travaille avec mon père. Je suis chez moi. Right? If I'm working with my dad, I might be at home. It's also possible I'm not at home, so it would also be fine to say je ne suis pas chez moi. Numéro 7. Tu vas au théâtre. Tu n'es pas chez toi. 8. Nous allons à la bibliothèque. Nous ne sommes pas chez nous. 9. Tu prépares le dîner. Tu es chez toi. Likelihood is if you are preparing dinner, you're at home, but I suppose it's possible you wouldn't be at home, so it would also be fine to say tu n'es pas chez toi. Next, we come to one of those little yellow boxes, an expression pour la conversation. How to express surprise. S'il vous plaît, répétez vraiment. Vraiment. Je parle chinois. Vraiment. So, really? So, I speak Chinese. Really? Okay. How to contradict someone. S'il vous plaît, répétez pas, du tout, pas du tout, pas du tout. Tu es anglais. Pas du tout, je suis français. So, are you English? Not at all. I am French. And we should be able to tell there, right? The person speaking over here, right, was male because we don't have an E on chinois. Same thing here. This would have been a masculine or male person speaking because there's no E's on anglais or français. So your homework is on page 220, exercise 5, and page 222, exercise 6. Page 220, exercise 5, we did that exercise out loud yesterday in class. We have activité. Ask your classmates if they play the following instruments and games. I do want you to write out both the question and then the answer. So you'll write the question and then you'll write your answer as if somebody had asked you that question. So our first example, we have est-ce que tu joues au ping-pong? Oui, je joue au ping-pong, or no, excuse me, je ne joue pas au ping-pong. So remember, the part of the question that's going to stay the same every time is the est-ce que tu joues? This is about using those a and de contractions. So remember, we use a with sports or games. And remember, a and le have to become o, and a and lay have to become o-a-u-x. We use a jouer with a de contraction for instruments. And again, de and le become do, and de and lay become day. So our second example, we see the piano, and we have est-ce que tu joues du piano? Oui, je joue du piano. No, je ne joue pas du piano. So again, okay, the answer will always have je and joue in it. If it's affirmative, it'll just be je joue. If it's negative, it'll be je ne joue pas. And then again, those a or those de contractions. Again, you're writing both the question and the answer for these. Exercise 6, samedi soir. Okay, we just did this one out loud. Remember, you're going to use the form of the verb être in your sentences. And again, it's going to be subject, correct form of the verb être, chez, and then the stress pronoun that matches the subject pronoun. So these kind of match. Okay, and some of them are negative, so some of them will have the ne and the pas around être. Au revoir, à demain.